I have in my hands the first ever Dedalus book of Lithuanian literature, which features 19 different Lithuanian authors. Throughout the last century, Lithuanian prose has borne witness to the social and cultural developments that have happened on the colonized edges of Europe. The authors included in this anthology have greatly contributed to shaping the spiritual contours of a nation with stories that reflect the inner workings of the human soul. By no means does this anthology encompass the whole of Lithuanian literature, but is rather an attempt to convey the more essential developments in it. Take the opportunity to become better acquainted with the literature of a country you may not be very familiar with. Who knows? Maybe it'll take you further away than you think.
That was the first time I flew to you as a bat, Tula, without even knowing whether I'd find you at home or whether you still live next to the Vilna River. I flapped my webbed wings, obeying entirely new instincts. I felt the never-before-experienced giddiness of flight and rose higher. I flew above the butterflies' cemetery. From above, the frost on the grass looked like a white shroud. Off in the distance, the Belmontes forest glowed in the throes of the damp. But I turned to the west, to you, Tula. There was nothing I wanted to say to you anymore, nor to remind you of, nor to explain. I just wanted to see you and be near you for a while. Even if I were invisible, what of it? But I only saw you on the following day, when, after it had gotten quite dark, I once again went out into the city. It was a city preparing to entomb itself. I don't even remember streets so dimly, so dismally lit. The lanterns and arched lamps merely emphasized the grimness. To me, the people passing by looked like they had only just now been pulled out of the water. Half dead, they staggered lifelessly towards home or some other place. It seemed that the city had forgotten how to talk. Only the car engines coughed, sounding like they'd come down with a cold. Yellow trolleybuses would slide past, silent as real ghosts, like coffins with glass windows loaded with someone's dead loved ones seated side by side. Maybe I didn't deserve a better life, I thought, creeping down the cement embankment towards the city center. The heart of the city also barely moved. But I'm of no use to anyone. Many think otherwise, and that I'm harmful, a destroyer bound to provoke a citizen's intolerance. Didn't the episode in the second city confirm this? Well then, yesterday when I was flying back to the second section, my colleagues, several real bats, Chiroptera, the common noctul, attacked me. They didn't want to admit a stranger into their domain. Now my hand and shoulder hurt, but I got ready to go into town anyway. The evenings had started to feel longer because of the real madmen who had been sent out for an evening walk in the exercise yard enclosed by the wired fence and were howling and laughing, their voices not drowned out by either Yaedo vi Comarado, playing at full blast in our block, or the heart-rending cries of Glebus's wife. For the third day in a row, she hadn't left the door of our block, unable to believe that her little Glebus was no longer there. I think they were getting ready to admit her to the women's section. Apparently, she wasn't just wailing, but guzzling the wine she'd brought along. And they say no one loves a drunk. They're loved by the same kind of drunks, and how they mourn when they lose their loved ones. I headed down the boulevard. Even the drunk people, who one happened upon with practically every step, rollicked, yelled, and shoved as if driven unwillingly by a greater force. Gloomy shadows passed, women carrying huge bouquets of white chrysanthemums. All Saints' Day was coming. Nothing buzzed in my sober head as I walked and walked. I had no purpose, and no one I wanted to see. But at the end of the boulevard, past the square, I bumped into Tula. She was walking by herself, just like everyone else, and looking the same way, as if she had just been pulled from the water. We really did bump into one another. She mumbled, "Sorry," and was going on her way. I held her by her shabby sleeve, and then she turned around and recognized me. "Hello, hello." She stirred her swollen lips. "Hello. Should we stop somewhere?" But she didn't take hold of my arm.
One day, everything ended very quickly. A guard took him to a small room with 2 windows with no bars. A table, covered with red material, stood in the middle of the room with 3 people sitting at it. Martinas, almost unable to hear with one ear, most likely due to an eardrum rupture while being beaten, calmly listened to the sentence. 25 years in a camp and 10 years of exile. He stood, almost not hearing the list of charges. He was sure that this disgustingly red cloth was dipped in the blood of his murdered brothers in arms and all those Lithuanian citizens who were tortured, beaten to death, or exiled to Siberia. He had seen a lot of blood, enough to paint all the communist flags and all the tablecloths. There would still be enough left over for the pioneers' lives. It was all just smoke and mirrors. Now they would take it to the storeroom, put a bullet to the back of the head, and it would all be finished. Funny, but he didn't feel fear, just a barely tolerable heaviness in his legs and stomach. Siberia greeted him coldly. On one stop along the way over the Volga, Martinas, standing near the cattle car's window, crisscrossed with barbed wire, saw a strange spectacle. A sleigh on a road blanketed with snow full of unhewn logs that was being pulled by a short-legged, one-horned cow. It was the first time in his life he had seen a harnessed cow. The beast stamped on the snow, turning his head to the side, and it seemed that the cow was suffering unspeakable pain, while the driver, a stocky, broad-faced Russian woman, occasionally slapped the animal on its sunken sides and hollered, "Hey, hey!" Finally, the tired cow stopped and slowly kneeled down on its front legs before its behind collapsed into the snowbank. Its eyes bulged and thick white steam gushed out of its nostrils. The cow was similar to a locomotive that had stopped and did not plan on moving anymore. It was as if something had gone awry in the mechanism and had been irrevocably damaged. The water or coal reserves were used up, like the will to live. The train moved forward, but Martinas remained standing near the little window, still looking at the fallen cow that didn't want to suffer anymore in the endless Siberian expanses that were quickly becoming dark.
I've already said, neither of us ever liked the way in which in final farewells, or in election campaigns for that matter, people are suddenly transformed into moral, beautiful, especially in the photographs enlarged hurriedly by undertakers, hospitable beings, almost without sin, who were neither licentious nor alcoholic. But if they did drink irresponsibly, it was for a good reason. A year ago, in a small town cemetery, as I was standing by a gravesite and listening to the eulogies, I became frightened by the thought that we're probably burying a still breathing former elementary school teacher who is eternally young, 84-year-old, energetic and hardworking, forever forging ahead with his creative plans. Perhaps the saying, "He lives forever in our hearts," means precisely that, especially in its most horrifying sense. Perhaps we sugarcoat a medically unsanctioned act intentionally with this euphemism. I'm certain that in the accursed rush that generally forms our lives, we do end up burying the occasional body without adequate inquiry into whether the person is really dead. Usually, it's those elderly folk taking an afternoon nap who seem to have intentionally showered and combed their hair and covered themselves up with the newspaper, as people used to with the prayer book in the old days. Do you remember? I think it was Feva who requested to be rushed to burial, asked for someone to put a mirror to her lips and check a few times whether the silver surface wasn't dampened by the fog of life, too subtle to be seen with the naked eye. And Gogol turned in his grave. Or was it Gogol who was checked and Svetseva who turned? I don't remember now. They're all the same to me. Our dearly departed. If she really is departed, please allow me as her closest friend to think of her as missing in action. Was neither energetic, nor beautiful, nor good, nor especially hardworking. Besides that, she drank enthusiastically every day. Worst of all, it was without any justifiable reason. So don't ask why. I look you all in the eye now, and I see, nonetheless, that most of you would be happy to hear the answer to this none too difficult question. If she were to appear here in the flesh, she'd respond as any alcoholic would, in the sincere voice of Jerry Pilch. I drink because I have a weak character. I drink because something in my head is turned upside down. I drink because I'm too anemic and I want to be rejuvenated. I drink because I'm nervous and I want to calm my nerves. I drink because I'm sad and I want to clear my soul. I drink because I'm happily in love. I drink because I'm hopelessly looking for love. I drink because I'm almost too normal and a little bit of insanity wouldn't hurt.